Turkey is one of the most popular travel destinations, offering a mix of history, culture, and amazing experiences. But before you head off, there are a few important things you need to know as a traveler. Even small mistakes, like drinking in the wrong spot or accidentally breaking a local custom, can quickly turn your trip into a stressful experience. You definitely want to avoid unnecessary fines or even legal issues. In this video, we'll cover the 7 key things you should never do in Turkey, so you can enjoy your trip without any unnecessary issues. So, let's start our video without any further delay. Number 7. Drinking alcohol in public spaces. One thing travelers often don't realize about Turkey is that drinking alcohol in public spaces like parks, streets, or beaches is strictly off-limits. It might seem harmless if you're used to sipping a drink in outdoor areas elsewhere, but in Turkey, this is actually against the law. If you're caught drinking in public, it could lead to fines or, in some cases, more serious legal issues. Turkish authorities take this very seriously, and even though it may seem like a small thing, it can quickly turn into a bigger problem. So, why is this such a big deal? Well, Turkish culture has deep-rooted traditions around public behavior, and drinking alcohol in open spaces is seen as disrespectful in many areas, especially in more conservative parts of the country. It's something that can draw negative attention and even lead to confrontations. Now that you know where not to sip your drink, let's move on to something just as important. How to behave at Turkey's beautiful religious sites. Number 6. Disrespecting religious sites. Turkey is filled with amazing religious sites, especially mosques, that hold a lot of history and meaning. These places are not just tourist spots. They are places where people come to pray and practice their faith. So, it's really important to show respect when you visit. One of the most important things to remember is how you dress. In mosques, both men and women need to wear modest clothing. This means no shorts, no sleeveless tops, and nothing too revealing. For women, it's also common to be asked to cover their heads with a scarf. If you don't have one, many mosques will provide one at the entrance. Another thing to keep in mind is how you behave. Mosques are places of worship, so it's expected to stay quiet, especially during prayer times. Avoid taking pictures of people praying, and definitely don't use your phone inside. You should also take off your shoes before entering. There are usually areas where you can leave them outside. The key here is simple: be respectful. By following these basic rules, you show that you appreciate the culture and the religious importance of these sites. It's a small way to show understanding and respect for the people and the history that make these places so special. Just as you would show respect in religious spaces, cultural respect extends to how you behave in public too. Number 5. Public displays of affection. Turkey is a country where modern life meets traditional values. While it's a popular tourist destination, and you might see some public affection in big cities, it's still considered inappropriate in many parts of the country. Holding hands is usually okay, but anything more, like kissing or hugging in public, can make people uncomfortable, especially in rural or more conservative areas. These places tend to follow stricter cultural norms, and public displays of affection, even if innocent, might be seen as disrespectful. This isn't about laws, but more about showing respect for the local culture. In Turkey, people generally prefer to keep romantic gestures private, and it's best to do the same as a visitor. To avoid any awkward moments or unwanted attention, keep any displays of affection to a minimum, especially when you're outside the major cities. While keeping public displays of affection to a minimum is important, dressing appropriately is another key part of respecting local traditions in Turkey. Here's what you need to know. Number 4. Wearing inappropriate clothing. Turkey is a diverse country, and what's acceptable in one place might not be in another. In cities like Istanbul, you'll see people wearing modern clothes, and it's generally more relaxed. But if you're visiting smaller towns or rural areas, the expectations around clothing can be a lot more conservative. It's especially important to dress modestly when visiting religious or cultural sites. For example, in mosques or certain historic areas, both men and women are expected to cover up more. Shorts, sleeveless tops, or anything too revealing should be avoided. Women may also need to cover their heads in these spaces as a sign of respect. Dressing appropriately isn't just about following the rules. It's a way to show respect for local customs and traditions. If you're not sure what's okay to wear, it's always safer to choose modest clothing. This small step helps you blend in better and shows that you're mindful of the culture around you. Now that you're dressed the right way, let's talk about respecting people's personal spaces. But before we move on, let us know, what's the funniest travel mistake you've made? We'd love to hear your stories. Number 3. Entering private spaces without permission. Turkey is famous for its hospitality. People are often very welcoming to visitors, and you might even be invited into someone's home for tea or a meal. But even though Turkish hospitality is generous, it's really important to respect private spaces. Entering someone's home or private property without being invited is considered very rude. In some cultures, dropping by unannounced might be okay, but in Turkey, you should always wait for an invitation before entering into someone's home or private area. And even if you're invited inside, it's polite to ask before entering specific rooms or spaces, as different areas of the home may have different levels of privacy. The key here is to always respect people's personal boundaries. Whether you're in a city or a small village, waiting for permission shows that you're thoughtful and considerate of the local customs. Respecting private spaces is a must, but another thing to be careful about is navigating Turkey's busy streets. Let's talk about traffic rules and how to stay safe. Number 2. Ignoring traffic rules. Turkey's streets, especially in big cities, can get really busy. Traffic moves fast, and things can be unpredictable. If you're not careful, crossing the street can feel like a challenge, especially in places like Istanbul, where the roads are always packed with cars. One thing to remember is that pedestrians should never assume that cars will stop for them, even at crosswalks. Drivers might not always follow traffic rules as strictly as you're used to, so it's important to always be cautious. When crossing the road, make sure you're using designated crosswalks and waiting for the signal to turn green. Don't rush across the street and always check carefully for oncoming cars, even if you think you have the right of way. Being careful and following traffic signals will help keep you safe while navigating the busy streets of Turkey. And finally, while you're out exploring Turkey, there's one thing you should never mishandle: the Turkish flag. Let's wrap up why this is so important. Number 1. Misusing the Turkish flag. The Turkish flag is more than just a national symbol. It represents the country's pride, history, and identity. People in Turkey have a deep respect for their flag, and because of this, there are strict rules about how it should be treated. One of the most important things to know is that the flag should never be misused or disrespected. Mishandling the flag can result in serious legal consequences, so it's really important to be aware of this during your trip. Showing respect for the flag is a sign that you understand and appreciate the significance it holds in Turkey. To stay on the right side of the law and avoid any misunderstandings, always treat the Turkish flag with the utmost respect. Now that you know what not to do in Turkey, you're all set to have an amazing, stress-free trip. If you found this video helpful, make sure to give it a like and subscribe for more travel tips. See you in the next video.